Hello everyone, it's Merlin here. For more anime, comic, and movie analysis, please subscribe and click the bell. Trigun has been on my mind a lot lately, for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why, but I guess I'll write about it and maybe turn it into a video. Trigun is one of those anime that must have really made an impression as a classic series. In fact, of the wave of shows that came out in the 1990s, this one really seems to stand out among the likes of Cowboy Bebop and Evangelion for a lot of fans reflecting back on that time. In this video though, I want to examine why is that though? What makes Trigun so special? Well, I think it boils down to a few things. Every story that seems to stand the test of time in our collective consciousness seems to have at least one element that really stands out. In this case, I think that one element is Vash the Stampede. Vash was, much like Spike Spiegel and Shinji Ikari, a character who contrasted the norms of anime action heroes who preceded him. Isn't to say that Vash doesn't have badass characteristics though. Contrary, I think he's one of the most impressive gunmen in fiction. First, there is the design. There's this odd simplicity to Vash, which sharply differs from the weird giants and mutant baddies that he encounters. He's tall and lean, bespectacled, and adorned with that big red coat, and that's all topped off by his spiky blonde hair. A pretty boy. That face just seems to suggest so much innocence. It's kind of odd considering that giant revolver, which is obviously greatly exaggerated in true anime fashion, of course. You see, I think the contrasting nature of Vash's character is the main thing that really defines him, reflecting the basic themes of the show. Vash is a peaceful warrior, that in itself being a contradiction. He abhors violence and death and really wants nothing more but to bring joy to his surroundings or just be left alone. However, destruction follows Vash wherever he goes. He's also known as the Human Typhoon after all. While this is played for laughs early on in the show, there is eventually revealed to be a darker truth. The audience is perhaps meant to think that at first, Vash is followed by a series of misfortunes and wrongly accused of crimes he did not commit. Spoilers ahead if you haven't read or watched any Trigun-related material. When mankind sent its people deep into space to search for a habitable homeworld, they would arrive on the desert planet of Arrakis. Gunsmoke, sorry. On the way, they come across these two childlike humanoid creatures. Those two were Vash and his brother Knives. These were otherworldly beings descended from the heavens, if you will, living among humans and being raised by them. It's here that the ideological clash begins and fuels the conflict for the whole show. Vash adopts the philosophy that all life is precious and must be protected. These teachings were instilled by their mother figure, Rem. Unfortunately, some of the other crew members grow to fear the two boys, and Knives slowly ingests these feelings of hatred. Knives attempts to wipe out humanity early on, and attempts to do so throughout the series, with Vash standing against him, when unwittingly causing destruction to a whole city. You see, the brothers hold within them truly destructive power, meaning that humans have plenty of reason to fear Vash. Despite his happy-go-lucky exterior, Vash harbors a great deal of guilt for the destruction he caused. It truly must be devastating to a psyche so rigidly against violence. I mentioned before that I think Vash is a truly badass gunman. Think about this. Vash's primary weapon is a massive gun. He spends so much of the series defeating villains with this weapon, without killing them. Obviously Vash is superhuman, or a super plant creature thing in this case, but think about how impressive that truly is. It would take a gunman of massively impressive skill to pull that off. Much comparison has been drawn between Vash the Peaceful Warrior and another popular character from the 90s with a similar philosophy, Kenshin Himura. I'm not going to go too far into comparison here, as that could probably be a whole nother video, but the comparison does make sense. I think Kenshin always had the advantage of having a story a little more grounded in reality and historical settings. After all, Kenshin was a soldier who had seen war, whereas Vash always seemed kind of divine. Then again, that's probably the point. Plenty of subtle and not so subtle allusions to Christianity in the series. Nicholas D. Wolfwood, who serves as Vash's confidant, is a priest, complete with a giant cross packing machine guns. As if the contradictions weren't prevalent already. Then again, the space western motif sort of requires this kind of thing. The whole world seems to have this post-apocalyptic vibe to it, slowly suggesting that humanity is nearing its end and perhaps some new birth. Knives' subordinates are cult-like in their worshipping of him as a Masonic figure or deity, an evil prophet. Perhaps the most interesting spiritual symbolism comes from the conflict between Vash and Knives. It's pretty easy to say that Vash represents good and Knives represents evil. On a basic level that works, but there is much more going on here. I always thought their conflict may allude to the story of Cain and Abel, in the sense that the actions would suggest this. One brother is jealous of another's favor. However, in the context of the show, it's hard to say whether one brother was born good while another evil. It certainly seems that their actions would suggest this. Knives is pretty frightening. Perhaps it's a bit more complicated, though. Vash and Knives are two different people who reacted to different parts of their upbringing. Vash sees the good in people and seeks to preserve life, while Knives sees humanity as a blight to be wiped out due to their inferiority. It's a frightening idea, but considering the hatred he was exposed to at such an early age so constantly, we can see how he may have come to this conclusion. The final battle may not go down in history as a masterpiece of action anime, but the tension between the two brothers has so much history behind it. It seems so strangely epic, perhaps even biblical in the sense that the fate of humanity would rest on an ideological clash between two brothers. Not sure why, but something about those ideas just resonates with me to this day. I can certainly count Trigun among one of my favorite anime, though it's odd considering I didn't like it at first. It took me a few attempts to get past the first couple episodes, but it did lead me to some really intriguing thematic places. Trigun is fun, but goes to some really dark places in the second half and really weighs some heavy stuff to think about. Well, there are some pretty awesome fights too. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Vash and Trigun in general. Let me know your comments below. What series, movies, or characters should I discuss next? Oh, and if you like this video, please subscribe and feel free to share it. Alright everyone, stay magical.